the big man on campus, Mr. Jeff Nadu. Welcome to the show, Mr. Nadu.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Very kind. Thanks for the intro. Looking forward to talking.
Everyone listening, if you didn't know, Mr. Nadu has a Mafia history podcast that he runs with Blackjack Fletcher, which I've been listening to every Wednesday. Absolutely awesome podcast. You can follow it on Twitter at the Sitdown 7. So I just want to ask you, what kind of plans did you have for the sit down moving forward?
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you listening to it. That means a lot to me. When we started the show, obviously you kind of said at the beginning, a lot of people look at me as like kind of a sports betting guy and a sports guy, but I kind of told myself, with less and less going on, but in the summer, I was kind of wanting to do something like this. So it's cool that people are listening to it. As far as what I want to do with it, I think the show can really go to very high levels. There's not a lot of people doing this niche. And if there are, there are other things that go along with it. We kind of have a full history show where, it can go so many different ways. We can interview people. We can, go just through so many different types of organized crime. I envision it kind of a brand in a way, like any big podcast. Obviously Joe Rogan would be the height of it, but I think of it as a show like that in a way where, maybe we don't have a guest every week, but we kind of pattern the interviews off that, getting people that were in the life, getting people that were involved with the life, FBI agents, actors, all sorts of things. And, I had big plans. I mean, obviously, as you know, and other people know, I've been connected with certain media companies. I would love for them to buy it. I would love for them to jump on board and take me to a height that I think the show can get to. It's already doing, 10 to 15,000 listeners a show. I think, with the right people behind it, I think it could do some really big things. And then I have ideas for other content that will go hand in hand with the show. And, it's such a really deep thing. Plus, I have a thought for kind of investigative shows and another show that's like kind of related to it. So there's all sorts of things you can do with it. But I appreciate you listening to it and, kind of spreading the word about it.
Sure. I could envision like getting guys in the life, especially like FBI investigators. That would be awesome.
I'm actually working on some of that stuff right now. I have two guys that one worked with the Bonanno crime family, one worked with the Gambino crime family. So yeah, I'm actively working on that stuff for sure. And then I have just ideas to speak to people that maybe we're just whether they're news reporters or writers or authors, people that know these people in depth. And yeah, that's kind of how I envision it.
And I remember you mentioning, you'd like to go on YouTube, which I think would be awesome. Even just seeing that stuff and like all the kinds of stuff you can go there with the editing, I think it's going to be awesome.
I think real quick, and I'll just kind of say one other thing. I think one thing that would go hand in hand with the show is a YouTube channel where we put the shows, but also do like shorter, little condensed 5-10 minute things about maybe smaller guys, really interesting stories. And there are so many different people, mob history, whether they're big or small. And you could tell stories about, stories with celebrities and kind of things like that. So yeah, I think we're going to do the whole gamut and try to really grow up. But the first thing is getting a bigger company to see it and, and kind of putting something into it and taking it from one level, to another.
Now we should just jump right into it. NBA playoffs. Milwaukee versus Phoenix. This is something new in the NBA. You got two smaller market teams out there. I think two of the best teams this year are just underlooked, especially when it comes to like everybody's talking about the Nets, everybody's talking about the Lakers, whatever. But now you get two really, really good teams that just like aren't very talked about. You got any thoughts on that?
Definitely going to be an NBA Finals that is not like something we've seen. Over the last couple of years, it's always LeBron James or the Warriors or other high level market teams. But as you said, these are two kind of teams that, Milwaukee's always been kind of the unknown in the playoffs. You never knew you were going to get. Giannis finally breaks through. And then on the other side, you have a team that was, one of the worst teams in the league just a couple of years ago. But, they're particularly Phoenix, really a testament of good free agent acquisitions and, drafting the correct way, being bad. And then once you're bad, making the right decisions. And, I obviously see it in this town, Philadelphia, with, some of the decisions they made that were not correct. And, they're obviously paying for them now. And it just goes to show you that if you have the right talent people and the right scouting, you can hit on players, and they went and fleeced teams as well. Getting a Mikal Bridges. A lot of people forget Philadelphia drafted Mikal Bridges on draft night and traded him an hour later for a guy that's no longer in the league. So, things like that really kind of go a long way in the matriculation of a team. You look at the rest of that group, kind of deciding that Kelly Oubre wasn't the right player and going out and getting a Jae Crowder. I mean, Jae Crowder's been one of the better defensive players over the last 10 years in the NBA. He adds an offensive output that, they really hadn't had off the bench or even just as a starter. If he's a starter, say what you want. I mean, they have a good bench, but getting kids that can come in and defend like Crowder, like Mikal Bridges, obviously you get Chris Paul's defense. Then you have a big that's turning into a top 5 big in the league. And you have a 2 guard that, can drop, 50 in a game if he had to. So, and throw that along with a coach that is terrific. He's one of the good young coaches in the league. Yeah. It's just all a great tonic, and they've been fun to watch. I'm very happy with this as well. I have a big future on the Suns. I was kind of able to stamp this out quickly, early, and I got in on it, and it's worked out.
But one thing I was talking to my brothers about earlier was I was like, well, that Jae Crowder signing is huge because Jae Crowder goes to the finals last year with the Heat, and they make a first-round exit this year. Maybe those are the type of guys that you start going after now in free agency. You got to get that.
That's exactly what you have to do. And listen, you could go all the way back when I did Big Men on Basketball, when I was at Barstool. We did an episode on the NBA. We did a preview. And I made it clear on the show, my favorite acquisition of the offseason was Crowder. It didn't really move a lot of waves. It didn't make a lot of waves. But it was a signing that good teams that want to become great teams make. And that's a good point by you. It's an astute point. Losing players like the Heat did with, whether it's him or whoever else, they obviously fall off a little bit. Jae Crowder is not the best player on the team. He's probably not the 3rd best player on the team, but he's a glue guy that does the little things. He defends, he makes jump shots, he gives you offense that you wouldn't expect, he rebounds. And again, he can defend and lock up the best player on the opposite team. And it's no secret. You had a guy like Torrey Craig, another guy that could come in and give you instant offense. You have a Dario Saric. You have Cameron Payne. All these guys instant offense. And, the first unit obviously defends. So, yeah, just a shrewd move. And it's exactly right. It's what you have to do to become a great team. And, that's something that certain teams realize and certain other teams don't.
I think it's this idea, this 4 that can play D and shoot from the wing, because the way I saw it is, Warriors, they did it with Draymond when they were winning all their championships. Draymond, lock-up defender. He can shoot the 3 from the wing. That's what you need. Jae Crowder can do that same thing. P.J. Tucker is that guy for the Bucks. Plays really good defense, can shoot the 3 from the wing. And then you got Royce O'Neal, who was a huge part in the Jazz being the number 1 seed that maybe people didn't know about. That 4 that can play defense and shoot from the wing. It's actually a pretty big deal.
They would call it the 3-and-D type player, which I think is, really, as you said, it's one of the most important pieces of a team. And, they not only have it with Crowder, but I remember when Bridges came out, I said he was the best 3-and-D player in that class. So, to me, it's not surprising that they're in the finals because, I thought they were getting there, especially last year where, they went 8-0 in the bubble and because of idiotic rules, they didn't get in. But, getting a guy like Paul just kind of put them over the top, won them, let's say 10 more games than they won last year. And, look, they started playing defense and, are they the greatest defense team in the league? No, but they're top 10 and that's good enough. Just a really good team. As far as do I think they can beat the Bucks? Surely. I think that, they should be the favorite. Obviously with, Antetokounmpo's health and all that kind of stuff. This isn't the Hawks. This isn't the East. This is a really good West, team, and they should be the favorite.
I have a Bucks future now. What I liked about them is they're finally not the number 1 seed. They get a little bit of heat off their back. They can really, shine without all this pressure. And here they are, after fumbling for a couple of years as the 1 seed when they were by far the best team in the East.
But when you look at them and you can kind of highlight some of the things that they did and went out and got better, for years they kind of tried to sell Eric Bledsoe and that Eric Bledsoe was the right player. And Eric Bledsoe wasn't the right player. And going out and getting Drew Holiday was the little thing you needed to get you up and over the top. And look, obviously you needed it all, and you needed Kyrie Irving and James Harden not being healthy against the Nets to beat that team. But, having a guy like Drew Holiday over, the likes of, Eric Bledsoe is huge. You mentioned PJ Tucker, who, look, he's not a good offensive player, but he's a great defensive player. And they have the other guys that can come up and give you something. You have a sensational superstar in Antetokounmpo. You've got an all-star in Middleton. Keep in mind, they've done this as well without, probably their best, their best young player in DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo hasn't played in over a month. They don't have much of a bench, but luckily at the right time, they got Forbes and Connaughton, and obviously the best one, Bobby Portis, to step up and give you some. Portis is a guy they brought in recently. So.
Portis had 22.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's picked up the slack.
And good teams do that. And the two common themes with both these teams is they both went out and said, you know what, we're not doing this again with the same teams. And they went up and made the right shrewd decisions, and they're here because of it.
I don't know if you look into sometimes people look at how players celebrate, after the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals. I don't know if you saw, but a lot of people are speculating maybe the Suns are a little bit too happy. They're, parading around like they already won the finals. And the Bucks, on the other hand, looked like they were getting ready to win an NBA championship. They're not satisfied. You ever look into stuff like that? Especially being a gambling man, maybe you're like trying to play the mental game a little bit.
No, I don't. I mean, listen, they won the Western Conference. I mean, that's not easy to do, especially when, like I said, just a couple of years ago, you're one of the worst teams in the NBA. I think they were happy for Chris Paul. I mean, Chris Paul is a guy that is a bona fide Hall of Famer. He's one of the best point guards, over the last 20 years in the NBA, and he's never got to a finals. I think, winning the way they did, beating the team that they beat, doing all they did. They didn't even make the playoffs last year, basically. And, now they're, winning the West over the Lakers and the Clippers and the Nuggets and the Jazz and all these different teams. So, no, I don't put much stock into that. I think obviously there's plenty of time between these games. The Suns should be the favorite. They are the favorite. And I think they're going to cut down the nets when it matters most. This is a really good basketball team. And, look, I've made a lot of bad decisions and bad predictions in sports. I was a guy that said that I didn't think Patrick Mahomes would play it down in the NFL. I actually said that. I also said I thought Luke Falk had Tom Brady-like qualities. I've made some bad predictions, but one of the best predictions I've ever made was the Suns winning the West. I'd fully believe they could do it, and I'm glad to be vindicated about it.
I mean, I guess when you get to a certain point in the sports media world, you got to be bold. I mean,
yeah, you can't be. Listen, I talk to people all the time, as you know. I mean, I talk to you. I'm talking to everybody. Anyone wants to talk to me, I'll talk to them. People always tell me, how do you get into the business? You got to do stuff off the cuff, man. You can't be boring. You can't be, I just going to agree with everything everyone else says. You got to go outside of the box. Sometimes you're going to look stupid. Sometimes, look, I made a comment today. I didn't think Villanova was top 5 team coming into the basketball season this year. People jumped all over me. I don't think they are. There are things that I've said that are crazy, but when they come true, it looks a whole lot better. And I remember when I said the Suns would win, I got so many people, oh, you're an idiot. You don't know anything. Bad take, strikingly bad take. And you know what? You know what I did? I went back and grabbed all those receipts. So, yes, you've got to be bold and you've got to be willing to give an opinion.
Yeah, I feel like I never shy away from that stuff. I mean, I've had some pretty wild takes. None off the top of my head, but, kind of just say whatever I feel.
Like the guy that says like really dumb shit either.
Always been like I hate Trevor Bauer guy, and then
I mean, well, look, I mean, I can laugh. I mean, all due respect, I mean, Trevor Bauer is not exactly in the good state of mind right now with some of his behavior. So yeah, I think off the field, Trevor Bauer is kind of a douche. I think that's been clear. So that's not exactly a bad take.
Coming into this year, I know you don't talk that much baseball, but everybody's saying Dodgers going back to back because they got Trevor Bauer, and I was more on the side of like, absolutely not. I hate the Dodgers this year. They lost all their depth, whatever. But Trevor Bauer's not it. I don't like Trevor Bauer. I don't think he's good. That's besides the point, though. But stay bold out there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So your top 5. I figured we should talk about that a little bit. I love UCLA in there. I'm a big UCLA guy. What's your read on them?
Well, obviously, UCLA came out of nowhere last year in college basketball. I mean, they obviously charmed a lot of people. And I said on Twitter, I thought it was one of the best coaching jobs I've seen in a long time. I mean, Mick Cronin is a guy that, he's been kind of a blue collar guy. He's at Cincinnati and he was a good coach. And then he took the job at UCLA and no one gave him any credit. Said it's a bad meeting. This isn't going to work. It's hard to get kids out in California that play defense. And he went out there and he took his system and he got the kids to believe. And, for me, that's pretty incredible, actually. As I said, you look at this year coming back. I mean, they welcome back everybody. Juzang's back, Tyler Campbell's back. That team that went to the, Final Four is all back. And, I kind of look at them in a way, not on the same level, but, it's obviously a much shorter time period. But if you remember a couple of years ago, Loyola went to the Final Four kind of out of nowhere. They came back this year. Kind of people expected them to be really good. I think UCLA is kind of the Power 5 version of that. I'd expect UCLA to come right back and be a top-level team. I think this team is really good. They're also going to get Chris Smith back, who didn't even play in the tournament last year. He was out for most of the year. They had a 5-star player, a kid called Peyton Watson. So yeah, I'm really high on them. I think defensively they'll be just as good, and they have a star in Juzang. So very high on them. They're a top 3 or 4 team.
Juzang's a beast for sure. So how do you feel about Maryland? They just got transfer Fats Russell. I feel like that's a pretty big acquisition. They played pretty good towards the end of the year. Maryland, do you got any thoughts on them? Like them, hate them?
Well, look.
I got a lot of flack for not involving them in the top 5. Look, unfortunately, there's 5 teams. I can only have so many teams. Listen, I'm just never going to put a team with Mark Turgeon leading the helm in the top 5. I'm just not. I don't think he's a good coach. I think he's wasted tons of talent in the past there. Look, getting a guy like Fats is terrific. I mean, Fats is one of the most underappreciated guards in the country. I saw him at Imhotep Academy when he's here in Philadelphia. He's a Philly kid. I love him. I think he'll be a fit there. Wahab comes in there from Georgetown, 2 very good players. But again, Aaron Wiggins, it sounds like he's going to stay in the draft, which is a dumb decision. I don't think he should, but he will.
Yeah.
Losing someone like him obviously hurts. And again, Mark Turgeon doesn't win to me when it matters most. And, I'm not going to really trust him to do much of anything. He's wasted more talent than probably anyone in America over the last decade. I mean, Kevin Huerter, Diamond Stone, Des Wells, all these different guys, it's just not good enough. And, if they had a different coach, maybe I'd feel different, but I'm excited. Obviously I'd love to see them win the Big 10. I'd love to see, certain teams get out of the way and them get the job done. So we'll see. I like Fats though. Excited about that.
Sure, Fats Russell's a big acquisition for them. Not saying they should be in your top 5. Obviously, everyone's got their own opinion. I don't even know if they'd be in my top 5. I want to talk about, Duke a little bit because from my standpoint, you lose Coach K. Players can openly get money from wherever they want, not under the table at Duke like maybe they used to.
You don't lose Coach K yet. He's got 1 more year.
But where's the selling point for all the recruits coming in? You're like, oh, Coach K's pretty much on his way out, and they didn't have a good year last year. What's happening to Duke? They hitting the deck? Are they done? What's going on? What do you think?
Well, that's
actually a good point. I think the good thing for Duke is, in the last 5+ years, they haven't been exactly a team that, they've had a lot of one and doners. And look, they have one and doners in this class. I mean, Paolo Banchero is a guy that, comes in, top level player. He'll kind of slot in and be, one of the better, kind of players in the country as a freshman. They don't do a lot to me. Look, they have some kids coming back that are exciting. Maybe they take the next step, but I just don't think, one top 10 player and a bunch of other guys are just going to get it done. They've got a lot of a road to handle. Obviously, Coach K being his last year, there's going to be that charade going on. They were obviously very underwhelming last year. They lost 6 of their last 9 games. This was a team that checked out. They had no interest in playing from the beginning. And shame on Coach K for doing that. I mean, that was all his decision. it was basically decided that they weren't going to put an effort in much at all. And we saw, obviously, that shake out the way it did. You mentioned it. What is it? If you're a recruit, or you're someone, do you quit again? Because obviously your coach is gone. Who cares?
Yeah.
There's just not a lot. Duke hasn't been a team that I've been too interested in the last couple of years. I won't be that interested in them this year. They'll be better than they were last year. It's hard to be worse, but there's not a lot that I love about them. They need some guys to take the next step. They just have a bunch of guys that are like 7-8 point a game scorers, and a bunch of new kids coming in. So they won't be on my radar, at least early.
I'm not a huge college basketball guy. Obviously, I watch college basketball. I do college basketball, whatever. Where do your reads kind of come from? Do you just watch? Because there's so many teams that you really need to almost follow. Like, you can't watch them all at once. So you just kind of like study the players over time. Like, where do the reads kind of come from when you make your picks? Because obviously this is your thing, college basketball. Jeff Nadu.
I guess really what it is I just, I spend a lot of time, I watch a lot of these teams. I think a lot of it has to do with just the memory that I have. I can retain knowledge and kind of store it in my head. So I kind of, when it comes to teams, if I kind of just throughout the year study who's gone and who's left, and kids that have transferred, and there's a lot of preseason stuff that I'm doing. I mean, a lot of it right now I'm doing. A lot of it's though all about the system and coach that they have. So as long as the coach is still there, it's a general kind of similarity. So, it really just comes with watching these kids, watching these teams, going back, and YouTube is obviously a great compliment now. You can go and watch games, you can watch content from last year. There's condensed games, things like that. So, it's really just about putting the time in, and I think another thing that I would tell anyone that's getting into this business is you don't have to know every sport. I decided that for me, it was, not that I don't love the NFL and the NBA and other things, but college basketball is going to be something that I try to master and put all my time into. And I think obviously personnel and the way teams, schematic each other and all that stuff is important. And, I've kind of been able to over the years just retain the knowledge, and I just spend a lot of time with it, and that goes hand in hand with kind of recognizing that it's, it's a job and it's part of what I'm doing. And, it's like anybody, if you're a mechanic, you have to take safety courses, or if you're a chef, you got to learn how to cook, or a bar, whatever, you got to put time into it. I sit here and, there'll be nights where I'd rather go do something else, but I sit here and I watch games, and I read and I understand what's going on. So, I will say this, from November till April, I basically hibernate, if you will. And I, pretty much my entire life is basketball. So, that's something. I married the game, that's kind of how, Meek Mill said, marry the game, and I married the game. That's what I did.
I go to West Virginia. I hate Texas. I appreciate Texas though. They're a talented program. Last year, I watched Jericho Sims basically dunk all over us. I mean, it was pretty rough, but pretty sure Jericho Sims is entering the draft, right? Maybe. I felt like he was actually a huge part of that team. He was very dominant every time I watched him. You still really like Texas. You had him in your top 5. Is no Jericho Sims something that would worry you?
I mean, you never want to lose people, but the truth of the matter is you're going to. And I look at what they went and were able to retain and add, and to me, I'm very interested. I think the first thing I want to look at is the guard play. I think Coleman and Jones are two of the better duos in the country, and I think that was on kind of. It was kind of out there all year. Now, again, I know they lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament, is what it is. But, they bring them back. They get Febris back, who I think can kind of become a high-level player for them, maybe how Jackson Hayes was. Sims flirts with the NBA. We'll see if he comes back. Obviously, Greg Brown will be gone. Greg Brown will never do it. I don't think Greg Brown would be wrong to come back either. He's not going to, but I think he could do one more year, and I think it would work out. But it's really about what they went and did in the transfer market. Devin Askew, Christian Bishop from Creighton, getting Timmy Allen from Utah. All these guys are instant players right away and come in. And then getting Trey Mitchell is really the crown jewel. Trey Mitchell is an NBA player. I thought he could have went out. He's as good a scorer as you'll find. He's got terrific height. He'll do really well in that system with, to me, one of the best coaches in the country and Beard. And obviously getting Beard is huge. This is a really good team. I think they go from having some good talent over the last couple of years to having just a really good basketball team that is really deep, that's going to defend their asses off, and they have one of the best coaches in the country.
I mean, that makes sense to me. So how about, I'm from West Virginia. What about West Virginia? We had 3 kids transfer out after the season was over. We were a 10 team. Pretty sure we were ranked up there. Do you know why? You got any reads? Maybe why something went wrong? Why people transferred out? Is it Bobby? Is it Bobby Huggins? Is he people not seeing his way? Emmett Matthews left. We lost
Jordan
McCabe. Those guys, they're leaving. Guys that have been there. Miles McBride obviously goes to the draft, but those 2 guys, they've been there. They've been in the program. Where's the out? What in college basketball players' minds do you think is like, hey, I need to get out of here?
That's always an interesting question. It's not one that I can always answer. Obviously there's just kind of issues between, whether it's playing time, where they kind of envision their role. Maybe they have a beef with the coach. Maybe they have a beef inside school. I don't know. Obviously, and I mean no disrespect to you. When you're at West Virginia, school's not the problem. I mean, anybody can get in there. As you know, I think they have like a 98% acceptance rate in state. So, it's not difficult, but I don't know. I would imagine that Chibue's issue was probably the fact that Culver seemed to be the guy that was going to get more of the light there and be the guy. And that's correct. Culver's a better player overall to me. And losing some of the guys they lost. I mean, I'll tell you this, losing Taz Sherman, it's not ideal. I thought I think you make the case, thought he was the best player they had at certain points last year.
Yeah, me too.
He was just a do-it-all kid. I like him a lot. Losing McBride. You still get McNeil back. That's obviously helpful. He's a knockdown shooter. You need some of these young kids like Kadrian Johnson to come back in and kind of be the next in line. And, a good thing from the standpoint of Huggins, he's developed some good talent, obviously, over the years with some of the guys that he's had. He's a great coach. I'll never take anything away from Bob. Why players leave? I don't know. I don't think it's Bob because, players leave every area. It doesn't matter who the coach is. So, I think they're a top 25 team coming into the season. Are they a team that can kind of have both things work for them at the same time? They've always been a team that when they can score, they can't defend. And when they can defend, they can't score. It's kind of, they've never really been on the same page as a team, but we'll see if they can take the next step. Culver's obviously a nice piece to start with. One of the best bigs in the country. He's a double-double kind of guy. I don't think there's all things lost. I think they're a top 25 team coming into the season, but that's a very tough conference, probably the toughest in the country.
You had 2 sleepers, St. Bon and Purdue. Obviously, I feel like Purdue is slept on every year because they always outperform what people expect. And St. Bon, who made it in the tournament last year and played a really good game versus a really tough LSU team that won the SEC.
Yeah, I think you can make the case that St. Bonaventure is surely the best mid-major outside of Gonzaga, if we still consider them a mid-major. I think you could put them in the top 15. I think they're that good. This is a very good basketball team. I think they're a team that is surely my Loyola of this year. Loyola I had last year. This year it'll be St. Bonnie's for sure. I'd bet them as soon as possible. I think they're a very good team that can make a run and get to a Final Four. They welcome everybody back. This is a team that everyone has a role on, whether it's Lofton in the backcourt, whether it's Oshuni down low, the 7-footer that can swat shots and defend and catch lobs. They have a good kind of group of role guys, 3-and-D guys, as we talked about. And I like what they did in the market. They go out and get 2 kids from the ACC that are going to come in and make a huge impact right away, kind of add to the depth that they have. The starting 5 are all double-digit guys, and that's something I like. The issue they had last year at times was outside of that, the 7th, 8th guys weren't giving them enough. With adding Quadri Adams and Coulibaly from Pittsburgh, all those things kind of get kind of advanced a little bit. And they're not going to be a team that loses in the first round. They're not going to get a terrible matchup like they did last year.
Yeah.
This team is going to win their conference, and I think they're going to make a deep run into March. As far as Purdue's concerned, I kind of look at them and say, I think this is probably a team that is, and some kid got on me today about calling them a sleeper, but they are a sleeper. A lot of people never regard them in the Big Ten. I think Matt Painter is terrific. I think this team is really good as well. I raved about Ivy last year, Jaden Ivey. I think the freshman was a better players in the country. Trevion Williams didn't play well really late in the season, kind of had some injuries. I think they'll be one of the best defensive teams in the country, and they're my pick to win the Big Ten, surely.
Purdue's always slept on, and they had such a great recruiting class this year. They were top.
Well, and they did.
And they did last year as well.
Yeah.
Ivy, as I mentioned, is a breakout candidate in that conference. They also have a kid, Zach Edey, who 7'4". I'm sure you saw him at certain points last year. He's just silky around the rim, man. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, I think, a better version of Marjanovic. He's not as big, but he's kind of silky around the rim, can rebound, always just kind of stands over everybody. I really like this team a lot. They have the best defender maybe in the country in Eric Hunter. Stefanovic is a knockdown shooter. There's a lot to like about this team, a lot to like about them. I will be involved with them as well long term.
Ohio State, what were you saying about them?
They got a transfer from Penn State that's supposedly pretty good. And they're bringing back a couple seniors, so is that a team to look out for?
Yeah, I think they're surely a team to look out for. Dwayne Washington is, he's just a killer, man. The kid is terrific. He can shoot the hell out of the ball. Liddell, I thought he was super underappreciated last year. They pretty much bring back everybody. You mentioned Wheeler, Jamari Wheeler, the transfer out of Penn State. Great call. He's a guy that I think will do even better, probably in a better role. He was a guy that was still giving you 7 to 10 points a game. I think he can come in and be kind of a good role player. There's some depth to like. Zed Key, a young player. Justice Suing, a transfer from Cal. Listen, they're going to be right there with Purdue. The three top teams in the Big Ten are Purdue, Ohio State, and Michigan. This is going to be quite the season for the Big Ten. Obviously, we know how good Ohio State was last year. They were in the top 10 for most of the season, and they lost kind of crazy on that first day with the Oral Roberts game. So I think for them, I think the moniker this year will be unfinished business. They were gutted to lose that game. And I think you could kind of see that they're not going to come into the season with, they're going to come in with a little bit different mindset. They'd be a team that I'd be pretty scared of, to be real frank. I think they're pretty damn good. And Washington and Liddell and all these young guys aren't going to forget any of that stuff.
And when you go back to the Big Ten tournament last year when Michigan beat Ohio State, they kind of looked out of it. And when I saw that game, I kind of expected, I don't know, maybe they don't win the first round, even though they were so stacked.
I think what that had to do with
That's a good astute point by you. I think the reason for that was those games, if we remember last year, they were some of the best games of the season, those Michigan, Ohio State games. I think it took a lot out of them. And B, they didn't have a point guard. I think it was kind of clear at certain points they didn't have that kind of wheel and deal guy on the perimeter that can kind of create for each other. And, Washington's more of a two guard. I want the ball in his hands, but, I want a conductor of the offense. And look, the truth of the matter is if you don't have a point guard, I'm just not going to bet on you. It's pretty simple. I can't bet on Florida State's a prime example. Florida State last year just didn't have a point guard. And, they had a really talented team, but they couldn't get that far because they didn't have a point guard. Getting a guy like Wheeler, I don't need Wheeler to score 15 points a game. Score 7 and give me 10 assists every game and defend and be a point guard. Be a Ricky Rubio type. That's what I need from Wheeler. And I think getting a guy like that will obviously help. And at the end of the season, you'll have some of that stuff in crunch time where you won't be as kind of tasked. Because Liddell and Washington, I think, took a lot of the brunt of the issues because, they failed, but they had a lot on their shoulders. So I think all that stuff kind of bodes well to them this year. That's generally not going to happen again.
Florida State is a team that kind of shocks me because they're up there every year. Like, you know, they're a top 4 seed in March. They're a 4 seed in March Madness. Seems like every year. They just can never push through. Like, they just don't have they have a missing piece somewhere.
It's guards win NCAA championships.
I think it's maybe Florida State lacks the guard play that guards win.
They didn't have Scotty Barnes last year either, right?
They had Scotty. Oh wait, Scotty Barnes got hurt last year, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and
I think he makes a point of, and you both make the point that, you know, again, you're not going to win if you don't have guards. You're just not. And you know, I think he realized that Hamilton quick. You're never going to find me underestimating this team because they always go out and have 10 guys that can play. They still got some guys that are testing the waters, but there's a few things we know. Koprivica's back, the big. He's going to give you 10 and 8 per game. Polite's back. He'll give you 10 a game. They addressed the point guard issue and go out and get Caleb Mills, who was very good at Houston. That's a good decision. He was one of the better players in that conference last year before he decided to transfer. You get some good pop on the perimeter with some young guys that they're bringing in, 2 freshmen and top 50 players. So, you know, they still have some things to weed out, I guess, as far as their personnel and who's coming back and who's not. But I would expect to at least get one of them back, probably Raquan Gray. They already have a pretty good team here. They addressed the point guard and guard issues. I'd expect them to be right there. They won't be a team I'll count out because they always seem to be there when it matters most.
You got a way too early kind of Final Four prediction, maybe? I know it's really early.
That's hard.
They're the best team for sure.
Yeah.
I'll throw Purdue in there. I'll throw Bonnie's in there.
Okay.
And I'll throw Arkansas in there. I think Arkansas, real quick, I've never been a huge Musselman fan on the court. I think recruiting and like transfer stuff, he's really good. He's a great rah-rah guy. But I never know if he has the ability. I thought last year in the NCAA tournament, I thought he was terrific. I thought he really made some astute decisions. They welcome back a couple of guys that I really liked last year. For them, it's really about also going out in the transfer market and doing some good things. Aldis Toney, a guy at Pittsburgh that left because of Capel. That wasn't the right situation for him. He's a guy that can give you 15 a game, surely. You have guys in Jalen Tate who are back. They also got a kid, Stanley Umidi, to come there. He, to me, I think coming in the season is one of the best scorers in the country. Last year at South Dakota, he was the second best scorer in the country. He's a guy that gave that group 40 a couple of times. He's that much of a scorer. So I really like, especially with them, because they're so guard oriented. They play so fast.
Yeah.
They're going to be another great over team. It's going to play a lot of overs this year.
Yeah.
Arkansas was a fun team to watch last year. Ryan, you got something?
So Kofi Coburn he entered the draft after the season ended, and then he just recently entered the transfer portal. Do you see a team that can go out and get him that would fit his scheme?
Yeah, I mean, look, he probably at this point is one of the gems still out there. We don't usually see this, but he's a guy that didn't, and that's a big loss for them. I mean, Illinois was a team that obviously had their issues at times last year. Losing a player like him is obviously hurts. I've heard Kentucky obviously being a team that will probably push for him. I know they're pushing for Marcus Carr as well. Kentucky is a team that, in the next couple of weeks could go from being a fringe top 10 team to a top 5 team. I mean, if you're able to add Coburn and Marcus Carr to a team that's already pretty good, you had to figure Cal wasn't going to be down for too long. That team last year sucked, and he knew that.
He was not going to stay down there.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen again. They're going to be very good. I also wouldn't count Arkansas out with the ability that Mr. Musselman has to bring kids in. Florida State's a fascinating possibility. I think Gonzaga will be in the mix, of course. I don't think he'll go to Gonzaga, but I think Memphis will be in there just with how with Penny there and that kind of stuff. But my favorite would probably be Kentucky. I guess we'll see, though. Kentucky or Arkansas would be very intriguing.
What about Coburn to Georgetown with Patrick Ewing? Would that help?
Well, yeah, I think obviously anytime you mention a school with a coach that obviously helps a lot of bigs, it'd be Georgetown. I would get the feeling with Kofi that this will obviously be his last year. Genuinely, when you're not that Georgetown can't win, and they obviously won last year. I don't know. I guess it's possible. I never root anyone out, kind of in the top 40, but my guess would be it would be Kentucky. Second guess would be Arkansas. I'll tell you right now, if he goes to Arkansas, that'll make me like them almost as much as I like Texas and Purdue. I already like Arkansas with the guards that they have. If they can add Coburn, wow.
Let's go ahead and move right into European Championship, baby. We got the semifinals coming up. Italy, Spain, England, and Denmark left. That's all we got. You have a future on Italy already, right?
I do, yes, 10-1.
So, I actually have an England future currently. How are you feeling? How do you feel? Italy?
Just fine. I feel like I have the best team left. I feel like we're kind of on a collision course for England and Italy.
Yeah.
But there's still one more game to play before we would get to that point. And I think the one thing I love about Italy is the fact that they're so cool, calm, and collected. They're not a team that showboat. They're not a team that kind of dot their I's and cross their T's before they get the piece of paper. They're a team that kind of understand what's ahead of them. And I don't know. I guess when I look at them, they've just for so many years been Italy, a team that defends, right? And their goal is to have possession, but hopefully get a goal and try to just be really good defensively and keep a clean sheet. They can not only do that now, but they also have some really high level talent, man. I mean, this team, I made the case. I thought they were the best team in world football. When you look at this team, there's not a lot of holes. I mean, they've got, kids that can come down the left and right side, whether it's Spinazzola or Locatelli. They've got goal scorers in Ciro Immobile or Insigne or Chiesa or whoever. And then you can look at the back and say, well, you look at them defensively. I mean, they, for a long time, didn't even allow a goal. I think it was like 300 or 400 minutes. And this is also important to understand, like some of their great defenders aren't even playing necessarily. Like Bastoni from Inter Milan is one of the best players in the entire Serie A, but Chiellini is like timeless, and Bonucci are timeless. The central defenders that they have, it's just incredible. Keep in mind, Giorgio Chiellini was on the 2006 side that won the World Cup. We're in 2021. That's 15 years. He's still playing. So I just I think Mancini's about as good a coach as you want on this team. I think he really kind of reminds me of Lippi, who was the coach in 2006. As far as Spain, I think they just lack. And look, I'm going to give them some credit. I'm surprised they got this far, to be really honest.
Yeah.
But I think when we look back at kind of what's went on here, they got the point against Poland. They beat a pretty bad Slovakia team.
Yeah.
And they beat a Croatia team that, I kind of had overrated. They didn't really have any goal-scoring threats, and they still gave up 3 in that one. And they beat a team in Switzerland in penalties. It just kind of went the wrong way. They don't have a legit goal scorer up front to me, even though they scored, 10 goals in the last 3 games. I think Italy will beat Spain. And look, no offense to Denmark. Nice story. But
England, I think, is by far a lot better. Like you said, Italy has just a ridiculous defense. I mean, most people kind of go over them because they're older. Like nobody really gives them the credit they deserve. But that Italian defense is real. They are really good. And then like you said, you have Insigne and Immobile. Those guys can straight up score. I mean, you have 2 very dominant attackers that most teams in the world don't have. I mean, Spain obviously lacks the attack, but they have guys like Koke in the midfield. I mean, they have Ferdinand Torres starting in the attack, and I mean, he doesn't even start for City. So they just lack on the attack, but they have such a good midfield. And then I guess Amir Laporte is playing for them somehow. I thought he was French, but there's probably something going on there. So their defense has been pretty good. Their midfield's been pretty good. I think they just got lucky the rest of the way. Personally, I got England in my future. I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know how we match up against an Italian team. The false nine with Harry Kane and it's kind of a shit show in England right now. You got such a loaded bench, and it's just like they're barely squeaking past most teams that they should be blowing out.
On paper, they're very good. I mean, really up and down, whether it's Sterling or Kane or Jack Grealish or Mason Mount or whoever. There's obviously a lot of top-heavy talent. Defensively, I don't think they're as strong as Italy is. And they have some questions. I'm not a big John Stones guy. Harry Maguire's a little bit overrated.
That's true.
And they also haven't won since the 60s. So I don't, no offense, but I'm not going to ever pick them in a situation like this. I truly believe Italy's the best team in this tournament.
It's a great pick. I don't think I saw anybody else even on Italy. I loved England on paper, and that's why they're my guys. The only team, I'm a pretty big on paper guy. I just got into soccer really once COVID started because they came back first or whatever. So I love the on paper stuff. England on paper is ridiculous. Guys like Jadon Sancho have barely even seen the field. So I'm just a fan. I saw the line, and those are too good of odds for me to pass up. So I jumped on that.
It's a great pick. I don't think I saw anybody else even on Italy. I loved England on paper, and that's why they were my guys. The only team, I'm a pretty big on paper guy. I just got into soccer really once COVID started. Don't get me wrong. We were just watching because they came back first or whatever. So I love the on paper stuff. England on paper is ridiculous. Guys like Jadon Sancho have barely even seen the field. So I'm just a fan. I saw the line, and those are too good of odds for me to pass up. So I jumped on that.
No, I mean they would be right there as far as kind of that top three, but we'll see. They got to get past Denmark. Obviously Italy's got to get past Spain. It's definitely an easier road. I'd rather play Denmark over Spain any day, but if it sets up the right way, hopefully we're going to get a great final, and I'm looking forward to it. But I'll take Italy. You got England. May the best man win, I guess.
My hidden gem of the month, Chris Middleton is my guy. I don't think he's been getting the media attention he deserves. That's kind of where the hidden gems thing comes in. He has been ridiculous. After Giannis goes out in the Hawks series and it's tied 2-2, people are ruling the Bucks down. They're like, whatever, Bucks are done. And I mean, Chris Middleton throws the team on his back, drops 36 in a game, and carries them 2 straight past the Hawks. The next 2 games without Giannis. I don't think he's getting enough credit. I don't think he's ever gotten enough credit. People were tearing up the Bucks for giving him a supermax, which I think is ridiculous looking back. A 50, 40, 90 guy basically every year. Chris Middleton's my guy. He is a stud. Totally underrated, I think, when it comes to most people. Not given nearly enough credit for how good he really is. My hidden gem.
I'll throw one out there. I mean, it's very hidden, but without this guy, I don't know if that Italy's as far as they are. I mean, they've been dominant in certain games, but these last couple have been tough. They have a kid on their side. I mean, a guy that if he told me he'd even play in this tournament, I'd be surprised. Matteo Pessina. This is a guy that scored 2 goals over the last 3 games. He's really given them a huge boost off the bench. This is a guy that wasn't even on this side until last year. I mean, November of last year. He kind of needed Mancini to kind of say, you know what, we'll bring you up. We'll give you a shot. He scored a goal in May in qualifying, and now he's in the big stage. You're giving them huge goals. I mean, this is a guy that's given them huge goals. And obviously the guys like Insigne and Verratti and all those kind of guys get the big credit. But this is a guy that had a huge goal to put them over up 2-0 against Austria, one that they had to have. He also scored the goal in that Wales match. I mean, in the 39th minute, he scored a header. It was a huge goal. So I'll go really hidden. Piscina has been really the unsung hero for them. Doesn't get any credit, won't get any credit. Kind of reminds me of years ago when they won in 2006. That's when I fell in love with soccer. I worked at a pizzeria. My best friend was from Sicily, and his father's a big soccer fan. And I remember watching those teams. You know, they had a guy back then, Marco Materazzi. He was a very similar player. Didn't get any fanfare, and he's actually famous because in 2006 they played France in the semifinal. Zinedine Zidane headbutted Materazzi and was sent off for a red card. And at the time, Zidane was one of the best players in the world. He's now a manager, but you know, Piscina kind of reminds me of a Materazzi or a Fabio Grosso. And you know, good teams, as we talked about with Crowder or whoever, good teams need those glue guys. And you know, Piscina's answered the call off the bench.
Yeah, no, that's honestly a perfect one. 2 goals, 3 games. That works perfect. Well, I guess that's all we got, Mr. Nadu. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was great. It was great. Got a lot of great knowledge, questions, everything.
You having me? Obviously, keep doing your thing, bro. Thanks for talking about all sorts of different things. Always like people that are willing to talk about many different topics. So, thanks for having me on, and appreciate it.